Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul. Hopefully you're having an amazing day. We really need to talk about leaks and speculation concerning the RTX 50 prices, because the 5090 in particular, well, the pricing situation for it, online, people are just absolutely going crazy with speculation and alleged leaks that we're going to be seeing these cards at around 3,000 US dollars on retail. And so what I want to do is put this video out to hopefully at the very least provide some calmness in the air and to tell people just don't panic quite yet. So there's a lot to go through here. I'm going to keep this video as short as possible, and we're not going to talk about specifications or any of that for the GPUs because we've had tons of those videos on the channel before. So for this, we're going to proceed with the understanding that you probably know the rough specs of the cards. With that said, this all started more recently with a YouTuber by the name of Vex. Now, just before we go further, I want to be clear, I'm not throwing anyone under the bus here. Their information could be 100% accurate, and I don't know them personally. This is no shade towards them, but yeah, let's get into this. So, they claim to have information of an Australian set of RTX 5080 cards. You can see all of these are Asus. And I'm going to round up the prices just to make it easy for everyone, or round down the prices as required. And we're looking at Australian dollars of around 2,500. Now, to put this into context, that would be around 1,600 US dollars. So that's a lot of money. That is a big increase over the MSRP of the 4080 cards, for example. And this would put it much more in line, at least if you're looking at US dollar prices, with the MSRP of the 4090 when it launched. Now, I don't need to tell you guys that that is a big leap, because let's assume that the 4090 is, as the rumors say, 10-20% slower than the 5080. Are people really going to want to pay this amount of money? I mean, yeah, okay, the 50 series may have like a new gimmick or something like that, but again, A, the 5080 has less RAM, and B, I just don't see anyone upgrading from an RTX 4080 or above, and it's not going to really appeal to AMD users either, because, yeah, it's just a lot of money is what I'm coming at, and it gets worse, actually. So, there is another set of prices, and this has really just been absolutely going crazy from a user by the name of WXNod on Twitter. Now, unfortunately, I think that this is perhaps the most misunderstood. So there's an article on WCCF Tech, and it's not their fault because people tweet things, there's no context, and so I think they just missed it. So I'm not throwing them under the bus or this user either. But basically, the RTX 5090 here is being listed at, well, around 19,001, and the RTX 5080, meanwhile, well, that's around 10,001. Again, I'm going to round up and down the prices just for our sanity. So, if you're looking at conversions of prices, we're looking around $2,500 to $3,000. I'm going to repeat that, $2,500 to $3,000 for the 5090, and the 5080 is, well, around up to $1,500. So the 5080 matches between the previous Australian leak, assuming that's accurate, and this, and meanwhile the 5090 could be up to twice the price. Now, yes, SM wise, roughly speaking, it's almost double. Obviously there's a considerable amount more RAM as well, and to be honest with you, looking at the leaked images of the RTX 5090, in terms of the GPU die itself, the stuff that's on the board, so that's the VRM, MOSFETs, the RAM, it's not very difficult to be like, I don't think that's going to be $100 to produce. It's going to be a little expensive, I think. And I could maybe see $2,500 for a premium card that has, some overclocking potential that is absolutely crazy. It's got like more phases in it than an angsty teen. It's got absolute crazy amounts of It's basically just cherry picked. And obviously companies like Asus, like MSI and so on, they release these things in really limited quantities. They put them out for hardcore overclockers or users that have a lot of money. But yeah, $3,000. But it becomes a little... Let's just say I'm very skeptical that this is actually a legitimate leak. And there's a reason for that. Take my hands, friends. Let us go on a ride. We will go on a magic carpet together to new wondrous lands. Well, maybe not too wondrous, but... oh, and by the way, can someone please, for the love of all that is just holy, make a new magic carpet game? Seriously. Oh, and if while you're at it, can you also make a new fear? That would just be swell. Thank you. Anyway, so this seems to be conjecture. There's another Twitter account, Huang514613, just rolls off the tongue. And they've actually leaked a ton of stuff recently for a number of things, including Intel. But basically, they provide a link to this. And again, this is no shade to the YouTube channel, because it seems to be conjecture. Now, I cannot understand Chinese. So if someone is able to better provide a translation for this, please do. Because I could use like machine learning, translation all day long. But the context is often missing, particularly for Chinese to English. So again, if I'm wrong on this, please let me know in the comments, DM me, and I'll try to make an amendment as soon as possible. But according to this, they say this is conjecture. You can see a larger image with all of the cards. So for example, the 5060, the 5070, 5070 Ti, 5080, and finally the 5090. Obviously, there are no prices there for the lower end cards such as the 5060. But again, I believe that this is probably conjecture. I do not believe that Nvidia will charge $3,000 for the 5090. There have been other leaks as well for retailers, and I have covered these in the past, so I'm not going to go over this too extensively in this video. But we saw Acer, for example, have desktops. And long story short, their desktops, there was a 5080 and a 5090 build. Now, it is very difficult to get prices, because while the prices were listed for these desktops, first of all, are they placeholder prices? Why is that so difficult to say? Placeholder prices. Why is that so difficult to say? So A, are they placeholder? And B, even if they are accurate, are they actually just ramping up the cost? Because you're talking about a pre-built. So yes, those cards were more expensive than the 40 series, although not extensively so, although it also becomes even harder because you're trying to make certain that every minute detail of that build is identical. For example, does the 5090 require a better power supply than the 4090? So that could contribute to a higher price. What about case fans? Are there extra case fans? What about this? What about that? Is it... And also, even if every single detail of the build is identical between the 4090 and the 5090 build, does it represent an MSRP price of the card? Let's just say, for the sake of very easy numbers, that the card is $1,000 MSRP. But does this build use an MSRP card, $1,000, or are they using a premium model of some description because perhaps that's what they can get in larger quantities, or maybe they just want to make extra money, whatever reasons, and so that is $1,100 or $1,200, which obviously can really offset the price. It's very hard to know. Or you could also say the same thing but in reverse. Maybe they're getting a really good deal, they've locked it in early, so even if the card is more expensive, well, too bad you, because, well, AIBs, they've just sold a crap ton of cards to these. To a pre-built. And remember, that's not exactly unheard of. Do you guys remember when mining was just such a big deal, where like Ethereum and all these other things were just being mined like crazy? And so the best quote-unquote way to get an RTX, was it RTX 30? I think it was RTX 30 right back then. An RTX 3080, for example, actually was to almost certainly go pre-built. Because, yeah, you might not be able to get every single spec that you wanted, but you would probably be spending not much more on an entire pre-built than what you would for just the card from certain retailers who were taking the absolute piss because of mining, and they could just basically charge what the hell they wanted. And God help you if you had to go to things like eBay. So, yeah, there's that to take into consideration. But those prices, again, from that retail listing, it did seem like the RTX 50 series were not that much more expensive. And I'm going to just say one last thing on this subject before I close out, because this video is already much longer than what I'd intended. I would be very hesitant to say that Nvidia will charge this much, because if you just think about this logically, guys, like just for a second, think about this logically. Now, you can play devil's advocate and say the 5080 and the 5090 will not have any competition. And I would say, yes, I can 100% conclude that this would also be the case. And I can definitely see Nvidia for, let's say, the 5090. It's got 32 gigabytes of GDDR7. It's got, like, you know, it's a beast. It's a behemoth. We've seen the images. I don't need to go into the specifics. It's got ridiculous amounts of everything. However, then where does that leave competition? Like, Nvidia are not. The 5080 is 10-20% faster than the 4090. The 4090 to the 5090, there's rumors it's like 20% faster, 30% faster, 40% faster, 50% faster. Let's be somewhat pessimistic but realistic and say it's 30 to 40% faster on average in raster. Yes, I'm sure there's going to be gimmicks for the RTX 50 series. They may have additional features for DLSS. Who knows? We can't speculate on whether it's got neural rendering. It's just guesses at this point until Jensen confirms it. But regardless of all of that, if it's 30%, 40% faster, you're essentially asking someone to double their pay for a card to get 30-40% extra performance. No one is going to do that. You can argue, well, you know what, you can sell your 4090 for, let's just say hypothetically you get like let's just say you get like half the price or maybe 2/3 the price of a 5090. I can see people doing that, right? Oh, you know what, I could sell my card and I only have to pay like an extra 800, 900,000 or whatever to get the next, you know, the flagship. Okay, that's fine. People, you know, hardcore gamers, they're going to do that. But you're saying to someone, hey, you could sell your card, and then you need to spend another 2,000 plus bucks. Dude, I don't know. That's just crazy to me. Another point while I'm on this little tangent. Where the hell does this leave cards like the 5070 and the 5070 Ti in terms of pricing? Are you going to have such a big gap between the 5070, the 5070 Ti, and the 5080? Because if so, AMD and Intel are going to be just... I mean, if I were Intel, and these are actually the prices of the 5080, I would just do anything in my power. I would sell my soul to get Battlemage high-end out as soon as possible. And I would target that thing at the cheapest price possible where I can make a small profit, but basically just aim it directly at Nvidia's 50 series, because they could just make a killing. And, you know, the RX 9700 XT, rumor is that it's within 5% of the 5080. Let's even say that is really optimistic and it's 10% slower than the 4080. So it's 10% slower than the 4080, you know. It's rumored to be around 5% according to the latest leaks, but let's just say that's too good, and it's actually more like 10% slower than the 4080. So it's perhaps closer to the, you know, one of the 4070 class cards. Again, there's overclocking that you could do, and AMD could presumably, assuming they're not just totally awful with marketing, they could make a really good decision. They could price the card extremely aggressively and make some actual really meaningful progress in terms of sales potentially. And also, I just don't see how Nvidia are going to be able to shift RTX 40 cards if they are pricing these things without a massive price gap between the 5070 class cards and the 5080 class cards. Anyway, I think I've rabbited on about this long enough. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but what my final point will be before I close out is that I've spoken to a couple of people who are quite well connected, a couple of quite infamous leakers as well under the table. They have not said that I can say that who they are, but if they want to say, hey, I told, you know, Paul this, then that's absolutely fine. I'm not trying to discredit, take someone's credit, but they've not given me permission to say who they are, so I don't want to say, you know, something and then I basically get someone in trouble. However, I've spoken to a couple other folks as well, and everyone at this point has essentially told me Nvidia has not decided on any prices and have not briefed anyone outside of the company. So this is probably just a few people select at Nvidia who know the prices. I believe Nvidia have probably discussed prices internally. There probably are some theoretical numbers, and I've spoken about what I've heard personally a few times at this point, but I don't think anything is decided. So any prices, even if Nvidia have internally spoken about these prices, they are not set in stone, and I don't think that they are going to be set in stone until basically the cards are announced. So I would just say at this point, please don't panic, guys. This happens pretty much every generation. Oh, and sorry for not being on camera for this. I had recorded previously on camera and then did a bunch of stuff and then realized that there was some additional information, so I had to basically re-record the entire thing. So, audio only, sorry about that. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.